I think even for Muslim women and men who are proponents of feminism, because I've gotten into these debates with them a lot, they'll say to me, "You don't get it, Nour. We're intersectional feminists. It's different. We're not white feminists. We're not liberal feminists." And to that, I say the following. Look, at bottom, feminism, no matter what version of it is, it's making the claim that a patriarchy exists. Right? So we have to start with that. Islam does not recognize this. It doesn't recognize this system called a patriarchy. And instead, Islam teaches us about equity among the sexes, and Daniel spoke about this at length. Biological and natural differences exist, and these differences balance one another. They're in harmony with one another. And if and when injustices against Muslim women do occur at the hands of Muslim men, it is not due to a system of oppression led by the latter. It is due to regression into Jahiliyyah. It is due to distancing from Islam. So I say this as somebody who spent a decade, if not more, as an atheist. I'm an Arab American. I was born into a Muslim family. My parents were, culturally Muslim, prayed on and off, Ramadan on and off. But when I went off to undergrad, I immersed myself in Western academics, Western philosophy, sociology, history, anthropology, gender and women's studies, religious studies, literature, the humanities, the gamut. And it took little to no time to convert me from a cultural Muslim to a staunch atheist. And during that decade, I was very vocal about the non-existence of a higher power. Don't ask me how my family reacted. It wasn't pretty. But atheism gave me an intellectual satisfaction because it made sense to me until it stopped making sense. And it wasn't until I began subjecting atheism to the same scrutiny that I had subjected Islam to that I finally started to see a little bit more clearly. So going back to analyzing feminism from a rhetorical stance, there's something called the rhetorical situation. And scholars then and now who study language and the art of communication talk about this at length. The rhetorical situation is basically the context of any rhetorical act. So if you are watching a film, if you're having a conversation, if you're listening to a talk, there are certain things that no matter what kind of form of rhetoric it is, you can count on those things being available. And those are the rhetor, the communicator, the speaker, the issue at hand, the medium. Is it a film? Is it a speech? Is it an advertisement? And then there's you guys, the audience. And from my work with feminists, what I have found constantly when I'm looking at the rhetorical situation of a conversation with them is that they're attempting to carve out a space within identity politics because that's the palatable political move today. So the left has given Muslim feminists license and oftentimes funding to pursue that endeavor, to pursue this idea of intersectional feminism and Islamic feminism. They're very heavily supported by the left. And what Muslim feminists or Muslims in the Ummah who may not identify as feminists but who subscribe to those ideologies stand to gain is public approval from what is clearly a very aggressive and tone-policing left. And at the same time, they're trying to maintain ties within the Muslim community. So what I truly believe is happening among many of my fellow Muslim women, insofar as my limited experience as one individual goes, is they're trying on the one hand to not break away from their Muslim community. That would be catastrophic for a lot of them. But at the same time, as Western-bred Muslims, they're attempting to reconcile their identities as women in the West. And so there's a lot at stake for them. That's why they hate him and what he has to say. There's a lot at stake. And we all have something at stake, right? If you look at the rhetorical situation, you have to ask yourself, what is at stake for this rhetor, for this communicator? What do they stand to lose or gain? And so when Daniel touched on the way in which rhetoric has shifted over the three waves of feminism, first wave feminism being, the language of civilizing the savage, second wave feminism being about development, Today, I think, we could make the argument that we're in an era of surrogacy, where we no longer accept that some white imperialist is going to speak on our behalf. Instead, the folks who are going to perpetuate or instill Western values in our community are our own people. It's not going to come from someone who you would look at and say, why would you talk for me? No, she looks like me. She's got on hijab. She has a degree. She prays 5 times a day. She fasts. But she's also a feminist. So what does that mean? So we're battling each other now, right?